This podcast is in no way affiliated with the Stars production or Diana Gabaldon. All views expressed are solely our own. Welcome to the Outlander podcast,
where the men are kilted, the women are winsome,
and the whiskey is neat. Welcome to episode 441 of the Outlander podcast. I'm Ginger.
And I'm Summer, and we are in love with all things Outlander.
This episode, we'd like to thank co-producer Lisa S.
This week, we will be discussing episode 709 entitled Unfinished Business. And there is a lot of unfinished business. More unfinished business than I anticipated, but it's all unfinished.
So it was a cold open with Jamie narrating a letter to Bree. They brought General Fraser's body to Scotland. And now they're off to Lallybroch. He calls it, quote, to have confrontations, whatever, quote, a storm of my own making. And that specifically, as you find out later, of course, is with regard to Leary.
Honestly, it's with regard to Jenny, too, because she lost his kid.
He ends the letter with, quote, again, to Bree. Quote, at least you have Roger and the Barons by your side.
Good God.
Then we have the opening, which is the music and everything and all the different scenes. And then we have the title card, which is an old gravestone with, we later find out, with the word or the name is Isabel on it. And it's a little, from behind, we see a little kid who looks like Jem or Mandy. Their size, almost Mandy's size. Tracing the letters, but it's all old. It's an old and yucky, gucky, weathered.
Shouldn't Bree have noticed it?
Gravestone.
I mean, like in the future, when she took the kids out of the graveyard, shouldn't she have noticed it?
I don't know that. I don't think that name would mean anything to her.
Yeah, what? She had that whole conversation with Ian about his daughter that died.
So there is no 708 recap. I was surprised. They did nothing.
There was, if you watched it on Stars. And I watched it this morning, and it was a really long recap. But yeah.
Okay, well, that's fair. And it would make sense that they do a recap because...
Preview at the end, yeah.
It's been a year.
Yeah.
So, but if you watch the screener, there was no recap. And then after this title card, the episode proper starts. And the episode proper starts with Roger coming to after going to the Stones.
At this point, we are introducing the Roger voiceover, which they will be using in the entire episode.
I mean, who knows how many episodes? I mean, who knows? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. They're going to have it as long as he's around people he can't talk in front of. Mm-hmm. So, because there's no way to work most of that inner workings into a conversation with Jamie's father or Galis Duncan or any person from the past.
So after they go through the Stones, Roger comes to and he sees a beetle, little insect, and the Bucklevy is having chest pain.
Here's the thing. He could have had that conversation with Buck. So I'm introducing it at the very beginning of him going through the Stones. No, I'm just saying he could have had all of those ruminations in front of Buck.
It depends on the stuff that he had in his brain when he came to. Yes. Anything later, he could.
No, I know.
No, I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I feel like they chose to introduce it right there.
It would not have been inappropriate. He could have said anything that he said in a voiceover to Buck, but
they were introducing that past Roger had to have everything in voiceover.
I don't know. I think they were introducing that mechanism. Yes. What I'm saying is anything that happened in a voiceover was not inappropriate for Buck to have heard. However, Buck was not with him, and when the voiceover came, the person who was there, it was not inappropriate to say that in front of. So the voiceover was needed. Even if Buck had been there when they opened the door to Lallybroch, for example.
Oh, no, that's totally different. If they'd introduced it there, it would have been, that makes sense.
Well, because it makes sense everywhere. Hold on. I'm not saying I'm in love with it, but I understand. But yeah, when he first comes to or whatever, it is what it is.
Well, it was a little, I will just say it was only a little jarring because up until this point, it has only been a mechanism used by Claire.
Yeah. Jamie's done very little.
A little,
but not much. But it's usually Claire's device. So the Bucklevy has chest pains, but he will live. They do need to get him some medical attention, and they need to find Jem.
They don't care about the medical attention yet. They're just like, we're just going to split up.
My next question was... You've already answered this, was going to be, what did you think about the Roger VO? But we answered that. So they split up. The Bucklavie is going to go to Inverness to check ship logs to see if any names pop up about a journey to America or journey to the colonies. And Roger's going to go to Lallybroch because Jem has been trained so that he didn't come up on the stones accidentally. He knows how to make his way home in his own time from the stones back to Lallybroch. And so he is going to head out there, and then in a few days they'll meet back at Lallybroch.
So this is clearly a time traveler issue and problem that doesn't happen with most people. But like the idea that they're going to go through the stones, happen upon the exact same time frame that they are, and still find him in a wide open playing field where they could have gone literally anywhere. Like the idea that that's the best option they had is crazy.
It was made under duress
for sure
when he found out his son was gone, and he believed him to be gone through the stones.
Yeah, and Bree's part in this entire episode is just to cry.
Then the camera, I think this is the only time we see Bree.
No, you see her twice. You see her in front of the stone, and then you see her in a car.
Yeah, but this is the same.
Oh, is it the same instance? Because she just cries.
It's the same scene or same sequence. So we see Bree and Mandy alone at the stones. They'll survive too. The trio, meaning Jamie, Claire, and young Ian, arrive at Lallybroch. Jenny sees her son for the first time in about a decade.
For like 2 seconds in the front of Lallybroch, I was like, because in my brain, I'm just with time travelers and they just came through the stones and they're going to Lallybroch. So I'm like, why did they get all of those horses? How did they get such put together like tack and everything? And I was like, oh, that's right. They came from the city. I
miss Laura Donnelly, but I like the new Jenny. I think she did. Okay, first of all, she's Kristen Atherton. I think it was Kristen Atherton. I think she's a good actress. That's not a question. However, and I could be wrong, it seems she may have watched the show to get some of Laura Donnelly's mannerisms, the way she like holds herself. And now there's very limited stuff you can do like in that dress. I get it, like with body posture and stuff. But the stuff and some of the intonation she had too. So I could be wrong and she just did it. But it seems like she kind of did her homework, which I could see why someone would want to. But on the other hand, if that's not the case at all, it would make sense that someone wouldn't want to copy somebody else, but she's still the role. What did you think of the new Jenny?
My only comment on it is that Laura Donnelly, while only 5'4", seemed so much bigger.
Oh, and this Jenny seemed quite small.
Yeah, and I didn't know this person's name, so I wasn't able to Google them to see how tall they were. But she seemed
actually small, like Jenny,
physically smaller,
like Jenny is in the book. Yeah. I agree. They are let in, and we find out Michael, who is one of Ian's brothers, Jenny and Ian's one of their sons. Michael's wife has died. He's the one who's worked with Jared in France in the wine business, and he's back for other reasons too. But his wife has died, so he's home from France.
I'm proud of you for saying the word Jared without singing it.
Oh, see, girl, I don't think Jared comes up again. And then they find out that Ian Sr. is ill, and Claire confirms it's
consumption.
Thank you.
But what's weird about that word, and I've always thought this is weird because of the term consumption, because it's really tuberculosis, but because they call it consumption, to me, I've always thought it was something that people who drank a lot of alcohol got. Because they consumed a lot of something.
They think the consumption comes from the fact that it's like your body tissue is being consumed from within.
Potentially.
Although he wasn't scrawny or anything, I think typically in the end stages, it was a very romanticized disease in the Victorian era.
Oh, yeah. And in every popular movie where, they just cough into a hanky and there's blood on it and then they're going to die.
Okay. I noticed it. I noticed it right away the first time I watched it. But when I was taking notes, I didn't remember to make a note about it until this next scene after we're already inside Lallybroch. Is it just me or did Lallybroch get a makeover? The inside, not the outside, the inside of Lallybroch looks fancier than hell. It's giving me Leach vibes. Now I know it's not a big castle, but it is huge and fancy. Now I'm not saying they didn't have money. I'm not saying it was ugly. It wasn't.
I think it's indicative of time having passed since Culloden. Because during Culloden, things were scarce. And during the time immediately after, things were super scarce.
We never saw it during Culloden. We saw it before. When Claire first went through the stones and ended up with Jenny. Yeah, she ended up with Jenny and Jamie, and then they eventually made it to his house after the witch trial. You know what I mean? It didn't look ugly. Don't get me wrong. It looked not like you could tell when they're having their bedroom scene or scenes in the bedroom. The wallpaper's the same. Like, I'm not saying it looks like super different and it's another place. No, but I'm talking specifically of the scenes when they're sitting at the table together, or they're sitting in the room where it's just Ian and Ian having that. I mean, that room is ginormous and there's 2 chairs right here. And I just thought, and there's 5 million candles. That reminds me of Leah because they had candles everywhere. Anyway, I'm not saying that Lallybroch should be shabby. It was never shabby. But I mean, I don't mean so much the beauty of the place, although it is beautiful. I'm talking about the size of the place. It never looked that fancy, ever. But I also did not go back to season 1 and watch. Stephen Cree looks good. And I don't mean Ian looks good for consumption, although that too. He sounds terrible. But Stephen Cree actually does it, even though the makeup they gave him and the wig and the gray hair, he's a good looking man.
I miss the beard from All Souls.
Yeah. Jenny tells Claire that Ian Sr. had that cough since his last stay at the toll booth, or since he had been in the toll booth. And then, I'm guessing that night, Jamie and Claire are back in their old digs. They have a little chat. The next morning at breakfast, young Ian gets to play Uncle Ian. He sees what it's like to have all those people, all those little, I almost said aunts and uncles, all those little nephews and nieces come around and poke his tattoos.
I was like, where are you going with that?
The fam chats about the American Revolution, and then Ian interrupts them quite rudely with his coughing fit.
How dare he?
How dare he?
It is a mood killer, for sure, to be reminded of someone's death.
He's dying. Damn it. I forgot.
Yeah, exactly. For a moment, everything was perfect in the world, and then he had to
remind me, damn it, Ian. Ian needs to chat with young Ian. Mano a mano, minus the leg. He tells him about his child. Young Ian tells him about his dad, about his child, and his new love, Rachel.
Well, his dad brings it up.
Yeah, but he ends up telling him.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, I think it's more indicative of the fact that he'd shared the information with his dad in the past, and his dad wanted to get more information about it. It just seemed, it feels like it would have been a different conversation if Ian had just brought it up, is all I'm saying, in the retelling of the episode.
I do think John Bell has matured a lot as an actor.
And he's filled out for sure.
Yeah, he's still like petite, not, you know what I mean? He's not going to be.
No, but I mean, it's the difference between like
Sam Heughan size.
Leonardo DiCaprio and Titanic versus Leonardo DiCaprio and the Gangs of New York. When he got like,
I was going to say,
when his face just filled in, like
I was going to say,
you reach a certain age.
Was Gangs of New York before Titanic?
It was after.
Oh, okay.
Titanic, he was scrawny. Everyone recognizes little tiny Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leonardo, I thought you were going to mention.
I mean, literally.
Romeo and Juliet.
No, that's scrawny too. I'm just saying everything since Gangs of New York, he's had a completely different face structure.
Quote, Elder Ian says to his son, quote, a dog does not, that made me laugh so much. A dog does not a wife guarantee. And that's what Ian Sr. tells his son when he's like, well, you need to go to her. And Ian's response is, well, she has my dog.
She knows how I feel about her.
She has my dog. When I go back, I have to see her again. And she's going to treat him nicely. She knows I like her. That's funny, Ian.
I mean, he could have asked many people to watch his dog, but he chose to give Rolo to her. So, I mean, that is indicative of having special feelings.
Ian tells young Ian to not waste time with his girl. Young Ian says, but I can't leave you. Like, I can't leave you like this, Dad. And that's where it ends at that scene. Jamie and Claire are out by the horses. Now, Jamie tells her that he needs to go see Leary. It was kind of an odd scene. I'm not saying it's odd that he tells her he needs to go there, because I mean, that's kind of, you do that out of respect given the past. However, it seemed like it came out of nowhere when she says he wants to know whom she's sleeping with. Did they have like a bad cut there? I don't know.
It's in reference to the last time
he had a dream about her.
No, I think felt bad about her. The letter, because Jenny is always telling him she's hooking up with so and so.
Oh,
Because, it's definitely the gossip that everyone talks about there. So clearly Jamie wants the gossip about his, former wife-ish.
So Jamie rides to Balrigan to see Larry. And
He's so dumb.
Jamie's dumb?
Yes. What does he expect? And I'm so glad that it's referenced in a later scene between him and Claire. Like, what did you think she was going to do? She's not changed. She's the same person. She's bitter. And all she ever does is misunderstand things you say. And she's never going to listen to you under these circumstances. So it's like, she's just going to be mean forever.
Yeah, she's going to be bitter. So on his way, just before the house, he may not know it right away, but he meets Larry's love interest. And Larry, as Summer said, she's rude as usual. And he tells her, he's like, look, I've got news about your daughter, about your grandkids, and I've come to apologize. And that goes over well. Then we go over to Roger and his VO telling us he's following after Jem, and he drinks from a stream. Then we go back with Leary and Jamie. At first, Larry seems reasonable. I did think she was going to be reasonable at first. She turns on a dime when it comes to the possibility of losing his alimony money. They straighten out any misunderstanding. It seems like they're going to. They don't. That Jamie was or wasn't in love with Claire when they were forced to wed. Yes, he said he agrees with Larry. He pitied her. And at least now, maybe she's saying, at least now you're honest with me. She starts throwing farm implements at Jamie, and Joey Boswell gets involved. Leary freaks out when Jamie punches him. And that's whom she's sleeping with.
It sounds like a turkey.
Joey Boswell?
Her. In the background of that fight scene.
Oh.
If you just don't look at the screen, which I was not doing at the time, it's just like... I was like, is there a turkey in this scene? There is not a turkey. It is just, however, it's been cut together.
The man never, in this scene, later on he does. The man never gets a line, though. And wasn't in the books, wasn't he supposed to be like simple?
He was played pretty fucking simple, Ginger. Why do you think he didn't have a line?
No. What I was going to say wasn't he supposed to be simple in the books? And he had a limp.
He had a limp in the show.
I'm saying that.
Okay.
So he did have a limp in the show. My next question was going to be, what, wasn't he supposed to be simple in the books? Maybe they made him simple here too.
He was absolutely simple.
Back at Lallybroch.
Because who chooses to go up against Jamie Fraser?
If you think it's to defend your love, I mean, maybe a lot of people. Back at Lallybroch, Claire with her fro wig and Jamie in their bedroom. She wants to tell his family about herself as a TT.
This has always gone over so well in the past.
She says she wants to do it to help keep them safe from harm in the future. But, as she's saying this, a little bit of their love theme comes up as they chat on the bed. And they have they have a few lines they exchange at the end of this scene. And she says, yeah, I've known you've needed me since you've seen me, since the first time you saw me.
In a medical way.
Or in some fashion. In the beginning, it was medical. Later, it turned
continued to be
sexual.
medical. It was medical over and over again before it became sexual.
Oh, it was medical in episode 708.
And it's still medical.
That's true.
Some things never change.
Cut to that convo. That was quick. Meaning the convo, she said, I want to have a convo with the family. Knock boots? I don't know. The thing is, the next day, they're in bed. They're getting ready for bed.
I'm kind of glad they didn't.
Well, we don't see that, and I'm happy. I'm not mad. Put it this way, and it's not because they're not attractive, even though they're older.
It's got to further the plot, and that wouldn't have furthered the plot.
It's never a bad idea for a love scene. What I'm saying is, if they keep love scenes out of it or don't give us too many, they can get more screen time in with actual freaking storylines that matter. Especially when they shoved all of Moby into half a season.
Besides, we're going to get plenty of that stuff moving forward.
Oh, I'm not worried about it. We've had plenty between season 1 through 6.
Especially based upon the preview that they showed at the end.
So they're at the table having the convo. She tells Jamie's family, her family now, about the upcoming French Revolution, mainly for Michael's sake, because he's the one who's hanging
going
in
back to France.
She knows because she's from a different time. She's like, that's all I can say. I was born in 1918, Natch.
Every time you say Natch, I think you're trying to say like bitch.
It kind of is. But I'm not calling it you anything or them.
Well, I don't think you're calling me anything. I just
Did you see what Diana wrote on
when
her?
they say natch, I think that means naturally.
Did you see what Diana wrote on her?
Of course not. I don't follow anybody online anymore.
Okay. So I don't always read the whole post. I'll read like the beginning of it. But as long as it's something that's, if it's Outlander related, or, it doesn't really matter. If Diana does it, I guess it's Outlander related. So I share a lot of her Facebook posts to our Facebook page. I don't always read her whole thing through, but I read the top of it. So the last one I remember sharing was yesterday, the day before, I think maybe Thursday. Anyway, she was talking about upcoming Thanksgiving plans, and she was talking about like what she was going to make or something, or prepare, and she put word dot or blah 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 blah, and then in parentheses I can't. She wrote turkey, natch.
Naturally, because you have turkey on Thanksgiving.
I'm not saying you can't use it. I'm saying I've never ever, and I'm not saying she hasn't used it before. I'm saying I've never seen or heard her use it. And so for something like that to come out of Diana, it's like those worlds that does not compute. It's funny is what I'm saying. And I commented on it and I said something like, did Diana just write natch?
It just tells me she's spending more time with her kids. And potentially, her grandchildren are still too small to be bringing stuff home. But
her grandkids are not saying natch.
No, they're not. I'm not
Not
saying
at
they
this
are.
age.
I'm just saying she's definitely hearing it being exposed to it from a younger set.
So next we see Roger walking his way up to Lallybach.
I knew what was going to happen, but I thought this scene was well done.
I gotta tell you. Well, I mean, they've done things like this before, so it shouldn't have surprised me, and it didn't surprise me that they did what they did. But when we see Roger come up, and then we flash to the family having that convo at the table, and you hear it knock knock, and then Roger's at the door, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. They're gonna do like a little back and forth thing. And then as it got closer and closer and closer, I was like, they better not mess this up. If they somehow make Roger go back to the same exact time, they will have screwed the pooch. No, they didn't.
They don't skip a whole year to give us that.
Year? That's like 30 years.
I mean a year in airing this season.
Oh,
they don't
to mess up.
They don't do that. You don't build us up to do something truly terrible.
I was so happy to see Brian Fraser. I had to look up the actor to see if it was the same guy, and it was Andy Whipp. Or Andrew Whipp, sorry.
But not the same actor of Blood of My Blood or Bone of My Bone or whatever the new prequel is going to be.
Oh, no, he's younger.
That's what I'm saying.
We're not talking about that
it's
at
the
all.
same, but I'm just saying it's not going to be the same Brian
Andrew.
Fraser.
And then in his time, Jamie goes to open the door, and it's Tweet Joni, all grown up.
She is the prettiest little girl.
With Roger, Brian Fraser. After Roger explains who he is, what he's doing there, he lost his son, Brian Fraser invites him in. And once he's in there and he's chatting a little bit more, we see a young Jenny. So same actress, Kristen Atherton, is there, and they're having chat. And he invites him to stay a bit. In the later past, Jimmy and Joni go for a walk and chat about her hooring mom and how she won't let her dowry money go to the church. And Joni wants Jamie to come up with a solution. After the outing of Claire as a TT, Jenny confronts her outside and asks that she heal Ian. Of course she can't. She has no power, just knowledge. Oh, but Claire, didn't you know knowledge is power? And to Jenny takes it as a no, I won't. And Jenny seethes and storms off. Back with Roger. Roger shares that Jamie is at Roger's VO shares that Jamie is at university in France. So he must be about 18, 19. And this helps him calculate the year to be about 1739 or 1740. He doesn't understand how he got to this time, but he is still looking for Jem. Now, show only watchers who have not read the book, I will say we still don't know if they're going to pick up this thread. There were some hints that they're going to do. Well, we don't know what they're going to do. There were some hints that they might. How that filters out, how that comes out, we'll find out in coming episodes. But the fact that they kept it in 1739, if they don't follow the book, which again, there's no guarantee, they may not. If they don't follow the book, then they have to come up with their own reason as to how Roger and Buckley poofed into 1739 on accident, right? So I won't say much more than that. There is a reason in the book. Not that they tried to. They're trying to find Jemmy. That's the same. But there's a reason in the book we find out why Roger landed in this time. But we have zero evidence because it's never been mentioned before, to my knowledge, ever. So it might be worse than the gold. Something that they don't just mention once and never leave, and then never come back to it until, oops, we have to. This could be a thing they never mentioned until, oops, we have to. We'll find out. So he's still looking for Jem. Brian and Roger go around asking, or have been going around, have put word out asking about a, quote, ferryman. Someone, and that's understood. And as they're out walking around, someone comes up to them and says, they walk around asking, and someone says, we've seen him. And they say, oh, it's someone in long trousers and a short coat, I think he says. That is Roger speak for someone from his time, the 20th century, right? Long trousers. They don't have the short cuffed trousers like the 18th century, right? So I will tell you this. The first time I watched it when they said ferryman, and even though I wrote it wrong, I wrote Ferry, like someone who's on a ferry crossing the river. That was wrong. No, it's ferryman, like Fairy. And all this, on the surface, it's them asking about a ferryman and someone telling them, yes, we've seen a person with long pants and short, not short sleeves, a short coat, whatever it is. Now, to Roger, and I'm not going to spoil anything because again, we don't know how they're going to go. But the fact that Roger is asking, and Brian, but mainly Roger, because Brian doesn't know what Roger's looking for. The fact that Roger has asked about a ferryman, Roger is asking the only way he can about Rob Cameron. Right. And I think the viewer knows that. I think the viewer is thinking about that. Now, the viewer doesn't know what we know from the book, but that doesn't matter.
Well, to be fair though, if you don't have subtitles on, everyone's going to think it's a boat dude.
Fair. And so Roger is genuinely asking about a ferryman, meaning someone who doesn't look quite right. That's basically not wearing the right clothes of the time, basically, right? And that's the first part. Second, meaning Rob Cameron. Yeah, a stranger who's out of place, someone who looks, you're right, someone who does not look like they fit in. And he's doing that because that's the only way he can ask about Rob Cameron. And if someone has seen him. Now, again, no one said they saw a little boy, but he didn't, I don't know. They're asking specifically about Rob. And I think that probably comes across. Maybe not ferryman or ferryman. That word may not have made sense. But I hope, I'm guessing the viewer who has not read the books will understand that they're trying to put the word out about Rob.
Well, what other reason would they be there? What other reason would they be talking to people? So, of course, they're trying to find out about Rob Cameron. And the viewer would get that, I would think.
Well, if they didn't know a ferryman, why would they ask about someone trying to cross a boat, working on a ferry boat? Come on. That's what I'm saying. But when he had the whole trouser description, I think, yeah, I am trusting that the viewer put 2 and 3 together. But while Roger thinks it could be Rob, readers know it's not. Is that a spoiler? A little bit. It doesn't say who or what.
If you've read the books, you know
matter.
It's not anybody. That's what I'm saying.
And someone also said something. I did not have subtitles put on some. I don't know if you can put subtitles on for the screeners. Yeah. So I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch it and then listen because since there's nothing to read. In that scene where he asks about a ferryman and the guy says, yes, we've seen him. He says something to the effect of he's been seen or spotted or whatever walking around the moors. That's a little bit of extra. So Rob's thinking, has someone seen someone who might be Rob? Roger's thinking, we're trying to find if someone has seen someone like Rob, whom I think might be Rob. And this guy is saying, yeah, we saw like a misfit. And he gave an extra little piece of information. He was seen walking down by the moors. Now, we don't know exactly, we know where Lallybroch, well, maybe not on a map, but we know approximately where Lallybroch is. We don't know how far which moors he's talking about. Is it south? Is it north? Is it whatever? Because whatever. That's not really important
It
right now.
can't have been that far for word to have gotten to them.
Well, we don't know. At least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At least a week has passed. And it took him 3 days to get to approximately 3 days to get to Latherbrock from when he got through. And from that point, they would have set word out. It would have taken at least a few days to get out. Anyway, yeah. So again, the whole reference in time, the show does not give us much, but that's not a big deal right now. We don't know how long he's been there. It's just something to keep in mind. Back with Jamie and Claire, young Jenny comes up with a horse and says the Bucklavie has shown up ill at Lallybroch, and wants you to come ASAP. There's no healer near us, but we know where we can send y'all to us. Somewhat near. An herbalist is a little bit away. Okay, back to Jamie and Claire.
Cut to Jamie walking around with a bunch of dead animals hoisted over his shoulder and a woman screaming in the woods.
Jamie comes upon Jenny screaming in a grove. Also, straight from the book. He gives her a pep talk, and she feels a little bit better. Of course, she's lamenting
But I like how he's like, you just want me to go?
Yeah.
Let me just walk away. And she's like, I mean, you've already seen it now. What are you going to walk away? I'm like,
what's the point?
I'm already embarrassed. You might as well stay.
What did you think of the wigs?
Whose?
Any of them.
I think a black wig and an updo without tendrils of some kind
Looks very severe.
looks very severe and flat.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look. It looks more like solid hair. Not even hair. It doesn't look like hair to me.
It almost looks fake.
Right.
As opposed to, yeah. And someone said, I'll say, we've never said this in a show
And it's
before.
the straightest hairline I've ever seen.
All of them. Someone, I swear I read it there because I'm not on Twitter anymore. I mean, I'm not hanging out on Twitter. But as you may or may not know, our pod is now over on Blue Sky. And I swear I read it. I don't know if I saw it on my account or saw it on the podcast account. But I was going through, saw someone's comment. All they said was, since the show started, people have been getting after Jamie's hair, this wig, bad wigs. Good. Oh, they have good wigs this season. Like the hair is always a thing. I had kind of forgotten about that. And the only thing that I read in a post, it wasn't a tweet, in a post was someone said, oh, the bad wigs are back. And I thought, wait, what? And this is before I saw it. This is days ago. And as soon as I watched it, I was like, oh, because I think, I mean, you were the one who was expressing the sentiment. I just threw a word out there, but you took it and agreed with it. But I think that is probably the way you said it is the best way. It's not that they're such terrible wigs. Like I'm not saying they're not well made. I'm not saying they're not expensive. I'm not saying that they don't match the hair color, or I'm not saying that. But you're right. When it looks like almost a piece. It looks like a piece, and there's no maybe like little sprinkles through of gray. Like that didn't look bad. Like the color of like the gray and the black and the whatever. But when it's just a very severe hairline for everyone, Claire's hairline didn't stand out to me, but her wig did not look
That's
as
because
good as
they
it
haven't
has.
needed to. I mean, they could go back to the wigs they were using 2 seasons ago because she's back to the longer hair and not the really short, awful grow out wig of the I was sick and they shaved my head. But
yeah.
also, Claire's wigs get away with a lot of things because they do a lot of wrappings of cloth around the hairline.
Yeah. Especially when she's out in the battlefield.
Yeah, and then the men have hats that cover the hairlines, but for whatever reason, Jenny's wig was very
Just severe. It was
severe. Okay.
Ian's, the color, like I said, he looked good. He was very handsome. The gray did not really, I mean, he looked appropriately like someone with consumption.
Feathered in a lot more colors into his wig, which gave it a little bit more depth
realistic.
and yeah.
And his hairline could have been severe, but maybe because it was so light, I didn't notice it because it wasn't like pale skin with dark. But Jamie's, even though it's not dark, Jamie's wig also was severe. It was like, I don't know. I don't know.
I will take Jamie's severe wig over the tendrils any day.
You don't like Jamie with tendrils?
No,
or girls
not
with tendrils?
since season 1 when it was his real hair. But then like in season 2 and no, it was season 3 when we came back for Voyager and they all got back together. Whatever Whatever the spindlies
remember.
were across his forehead, I was not digging it. And yes, it was kind of hobbity.
So we have a scene where at Lallybroch where we get all the people there for the signing of this contract. And I'm not going to lie. I don't know if he wasn't available. I don't think he's passed away in real life, like the actor.
Ned Gowan?
Yes.
I think they get away with it with the idea that he is really old and it's
No,
easier.
I'm not saying they can't get away with it. It was effective still. He's like, oh, I talked to him. My point is, why can't they? Why can't they just pop him in? Anyway, whatever.
I mean, it was probably one, a cost saving measure, and two, it's totally plausible. It's totally plausible that Ned Gowan, while still sound of mind and sprightly in his thought processes, is probably not as easy to get around and move and get out of his house and come to Lallybroch, where it's easier to go to him and still get the things you need because they are much more spry and youthful than Ned Gowan.
But at least they mention him, and he's still alive. Leary, her dude, and Joni have come to Lallybroch to go over some documents. As the agreement will be, if Leary marries her dude, Balrigan will be guaranteed to be hers and only hers. Jamie won't pay any more alimony, and Leary will release Joni's dowry and to the convent, and Jamie will also give some more gold to be paid to the convent for her maintenance. And Leary agrees. Finally. Hopefully this, I won't say it's not good riddance, but hopefully this is this. Jamie and Claire prep more letters to leave at a bank in Edinburgh. Now in the book, this does not matter. This, I think, honestly, they did this for time and space in the show. Okay, in the book, when they're returning to Scotland with General Fraser's body, it's in a lead coffin, so it won't, leak or whatever. And they go to Edinburgh first to get all the stuff together. Claire's like writing this herbal manual, medical book, whatever. And they get spectacles. They do the shopping there, all this stuff. And the body is kept there. There's a little oopsie with the thing, but they take care of it. And then they go to the Highlands where they bury him and all of that. And then they go to Lallybroch. Now, that doesn't really matter, right? And when they're at Edinburgh, they do the whole bank thing.
That would have been a really boring episode to watch.
I don't think it would have been if they kept the nasty.
If they didn't just cut straight what they did, cut out minutia.
I didn't say they didn't. I'm saying it was probably a smart move. It gets them where they need to be because the action and the emotion happens at Lallybroch. Edinburgh, you're still only with Jamie and Claire, which is fine. Like, again, book readers, we would love anything and everything. Typically, that's fine. But yeah, I think it was a good time on screen saving time and probably budget. That was definitely. I don't necessarily disagree with that decision. I think that was a good.
It was unnecessary to move the plot forward.
And all they did they got rid of a whole bunch in Edinburgh. Like, obviously we're not seeing it. And the change they made also means Claire does not go back to Edinburgh. Now, that doesn't change Claire going there and Claire going back. Like, she does the things that Claire needs to do. Yeah. So all they did really, if you haven't read the books, all they did was reverse the order. In the book, it's on the boat with the body to Edinburgh, then the Highlands, and then Lallybroch, and then everything there happens, and then Claire and Ian go back. All they did was reverse it, but in the reversal, Claire and Ian don't go to Edinburgh, which is not a big deal. So at least here in this scene, they made, or Jamie, I think Jamie mentions it, about taking letters to the Edinburgh Bank. Because again, this is how the letters eventually get to the 20th century or held until Jamie are held somewhere safely until Roger and Bree can get them in the 20th century. Jenny brings in a letter from the colonies and says, "Hey, it's for you, Claire." And she opens it and it's from Lord John. So the show is using Lord John's nephew, his injuries, as a reason to call Claire back early, and they're completely leaving out Henri Christian. There's really only one theory that I think makes sense or why they're going to do that. Well, I can kind of understand that. They've completely dropped Marsley, Fergus, and their children from the story. Again, they don't get a lot of play here in the book, so that's not different. But in the books, they're in Philadelphia because they had issues going on down in wherever they were on the coast. it was too dangerous for him to be a printer there. So they moved up to Philadelphia. Now, who knows what we'll see when we get there? It's possible that they'll be there and they're just not going to do the whole Henri Christian storyline. Who knows? Well, whatever. Not that Claire wouldn't be so kind as to go operate on somebody else, but it's less of an emotional thing if it's not Henri Christian or one of her grandkids. You know what I mean? What did you think about them changing that?
Having seen the preview for next week, this is the way that they've chosen to prove a specific plot forward.
Which is from the book anyway. That's not different.
Because they cut that section out because they're prepping us for what happens next between her and Lord John.
Oh, so they're going straight there. Yes. And I did see, I think Sarah, Outlander TV News, shares like the what's next kind of thing, the previews. And I did click on that. And I do remember, obviously they're not giving it away, but in the preview, so this is not a spoiler because I didn't see it all, but I remember little bits of it. Yes, that she gets to the new world. There's a scene with her and Lord John. And all we see, if I remember correctly, is him coming in one scene and saying, "I'm afraid I have just really bad news." Yeah. And that's where book readers are like, we know what's coming next. Get ready, y'all's balls. So Claire will leave alone to go to at this point, to operate. And Jenny tells her so. You have to go. If you can save this man, go do it. Young Ian writes a letter to Rachel, which his mom rips up and says, no.
What a wasted
fire.
Why?
Huh?
I thought for sure she was going to take that thing and just chuck it in the fire.
Oh,
but she just tore it in half and it could have been totally put back together.
She's like, boy, you are going to go with your aunt. Go claim your girl.
Well, that and the other thing that drove me a little bit nutso about this scene is that in his scene that he'd already had with his dad told him, don't stay here for me.
And then how did the scene end? He goes, I can't leave you. I want to be here the rest of your life. I can't leave you. And that's how it ended. They didn't have, I don't think, Elder Ian speak again to.
We don't see Elder Ian again until he comes down the steps.
No, he doesn't waddle. He does pretty well. Jenny takes him then to the graveyard and shows him the headstone they'd had made for his little girl. I already said this. I think it was Mandy, but it could have been Jem. Who knows? It was one of their kids. You could from the back because they had the same hair coloring. One of those two. Ooh, yeah. I don't know. I can't say what I almost said because that is a spoiler. But okay, I'll say this. Given the age of the gravestone we see in the title card, it's weathered, it's got overgrowth and all that, right? It's covered up. So given the age of it, that has to be 20th century.
Correct.
And a scene that we know Bree and the kids are in the graveyard in the book, which I'm not going to mention.
But they already had a scene with them in the graveyard, did they not?
I don't believe so.
Wasn't there in the last season when she finds the kids playing there and she...
Oh, maybe.
And she comes in and then later, because they were like, we talked to Grandad here. And then she goes, oh, is he there? And they're like, no.
But the scene I'm talking about, it hasn't happened.
Okay.
But it may not happen. But the scene I'm talking about or referring to, it does not happen in the 20th century. So the gravestone wouldn't be as old and mangled and whatever. After Jenny and Claire make up, Claire says her final goodbye to Jenny, and then Ian Sr. hobbles out one more time to say goodbye to his son and to Claire. And then they're off. But we can't end here. We see Roger and Bucklivy going to the village with the herbalist and a boom.
That was so clearly Chloris.
What? Oh, yeah, of course.
It just blue.
Yes.
Not yellow anymore. So did like the entire city of Chloris get together
and get painted again?
In the between now and Claire's first journey back through the stones and go, we should make ourselves yellow.
No, I think it's it could be another end of the town.
It's not though. It's literally right next to the little fountain piece that's right in front of where she lived in the books in the first season. It's just blue now and not yellow.
Well, maybe they'll explain that.
They won't. I'm just curious. I think they tried to make it other enough that we wouldn't recognize it.
So the witch,
the yellow was very...
Yes. So the witch is back, and Roger's VO did make me laugh. I don't remember exactly what he says, but he says something like...
He says Jesus Christ at one point.
Oh, there you go. Superstar.
And that was episode 709. Join us next week when we will be discussing, and by week, I mean next time, when we will be discussing episode 710, entitled Brotherly Love.
Again, a special thanks to co-producer Lisa S. To find out more about how you can support us on Patreon, visit outlanderpod.com/Patreon.
And if you'd like to continue the conversation about Outlander, please join us at www.outlanderpod.com/group. And if you've ever liked any of our designs over the years, please join us at looking at stuff that is available to purchase at www.outlanderpod.com/shop.
And if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, the Outlander Pod Gazette, please do. Yes, it has probably been a year since we've had one, but get on the list. So when we do send one out, once we're caught up, I'll try and send them out at least with each new episode. You can find out more there for that at outlanderpod.com/newsletter. Thank you, as always, so much for listening. We look forward to our next episode. Thank you to our generous partner, Zencastr, who offers high-fidelity podcasting. Check out Zencastr and use coupon code OUTLANDER20, Outlander20, for 20% off 3 months or 20% off for a year. Connect with us. Visit our website at outlanderpod.com. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/outlanderpod. We'd love for you to join our Facebook community at outlanderpod.com/group. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlanderPod.